I feel like we should have a cool NAFA jingle in the background while we get people funneling
We
in.
need a theme song.
100%.
Opportunity lost. All right, well, let's get things started here. A few people flowing in. We've got a boy, we're expecting over 100 and some people for a webinar here today. So appreciate everybody signing up and learning from our panelists today. Welcome. This is the Dominating the Digital Domain Social Selling Strategies, otherwise known as the alliteration webinar. We love that. We like this. So this is good. Best title yet by NAFA. So we welcome John Holmes from Camfil, Canada, and Lisa Greenfield from Lab. We're going to introduce them in a second here, but first, an important message from NAFA here. Thanks for joining us. Oh, geez, malfunction already here. I guess I was at the end of there. There we go. Okay. And you guys can see my screen okay, John, at least? I'm assuming if you can see it, everybody else can see it? Okay, good. All right. NAFA is the National Air Filtration Association. We have 2 conferences per year. Earlier, we had the technical seminar in Dallas in April, and coming up will be the annual convention in Maui, Hawaii. We haven't been there in over 10 years, so we're excited for that. There will be some work done, I think, probably, but also a lot of people will bring their spouse or their partners and employees who have done a very good job, probably. So check that out at nafahq.org and come for some great learning, a luau. I'll get more alliteration. All right, there we go. And the next thing after that is going to be the technical seminar next spring. We've already got that kind of ready to go. We're starting to build that. That's going to be in Tempe. It's going to be the Omni at Arizona State. So that's a really cool area downtown Tempe, which is effectively kind of the Phoenix metro area. So put that on your calendar. Technical seminar is a great place to come, bring your salespeople, bring your business development, bring your engineers, and get a little technical about air filtration. NAFA also puts out these best practices guidelines, which are really kind of the practical side of the ASHRAE Stant 522 standard, right? So we talk less about particles and microns and more about how should you handle air filtration in a building, or what type of building, from a indoor firing range to a home, to a school, commercial office space, all the things in between. So these are the specific applications of air filtration, and down to kind of the application. So those are free. You can get to those to our website, download those, give them to your customers. If you are a building owner, you should be reviewing this with your facilities manager as well. If you were an AFA member and you want to associate those guidelines with your brand, you can certainly do that. That's a NAFA benefit. You can check in with us on that. But those are a really cool way to associate and a nice leave behind. I'll associate NAFA with your company, and it's a nice leave behind showing that you're a NAFA member. And if you want to like us, follow us, stalk us, you can do that. We have a webinar. Or we have a podcast that we'll put all of our webinars on. We've been putting a lot of our all of our conference content on there as well, and so we put a lot of educational content and videos and all kinds of good stuff out there. So follow us here. All right, so without further ado, let's introduce our panelists. Lisa Greenfield, CAFS, is an experienced indoor air quality expert with Lab, and an educator with almost 2 decades of experience, who is highly committed to creating healthier and safer indoor experiences. Lisa is a dedicated consultant who educates others about the importance of implementing technologies to prevent and mitigate indoor air pollution. John Holmes brings over 20 years of sales experience, including a decade of experience in air filtration. Since joining Camfil Canada in 2014 and promoted to the National Accounts Manager in 2022, John has solidified his position as a preeminent authority in filtration technologies and standards. Welcome, Lisa and John.
Thank you, Tony.
All right, I'm going to get off of this slide, and John, you're going to bring up your slides, and then I'm going to get out of
Have
here.
some
But
popcorn
I'm
and
really excited about this one. Lisa and John are rock stars when it comes to stop sharing here. Social selling. If you follow them, and if you don't, you should definitely do that. Look them up on LinkedIn and share a lot of great content about air filtration, which we think helps a lot with some of that top of the funnel stuff. All right, take it over, Lisa and John.
Thanks, Tony. It's great to be here, and everyone who's joining us now, thank you for joining us. We're going to have a great talk about dominating the digital domain and social selling strategies. So I'm going to let John start us off.
sounds good. And I got to give props to Lisa. She came up with the name. Pretty good at branding strategy there. I thought it was pretty cool. So while we're, what we're going to do today is sort of cover and forgive us if you're not Canadian. The W5 is a news show here in Canada, and the W5 stands for the who, what, where, when, and why. Sometimes how. We're going to do all of those things related to social selling, mainly around the LinkedIn piece. Talk about some best practices and then some takeaways that you could implement afterwards. So let's debunk some of the common myths out there. First off, be an interesting little home experiment. I mean, I haven't done it this week yet, but there's a function on your phone, respectively, whether it's an iPhone or an Android. It actually shows you your screen time. It's very interesting. But of all the time you spend in front of all these screens, the average American spends 2 hours just on the social media piece. So that's a really interesting thing to know, because that's where attention is. And I understand that, at the end of the day, a lot of people have felt over the years that, I don't need LinkedIn to sell, or I'm not going to bother with Twitter or any of the other socials here because I'm doing okay. And it's a waste of time. And maybe that's necessarily true, but the world continues to change. So consider, if you haven't before, maybe looking at, LinkedIn, social media sort of through a different lens and a different approach after we go through it today. So I'll pass it to you, Lisa, to tell us what it is in a nutshell.
Okay, thanks, John. Well, social selling is more than just your traditional selling, right? When you're online, you can reach a lot more people, and it doesn't cost you anything. So we did this is me in a nutshell thing, because in a nutshell, social selling is about getting your product out there by getting your company out there. And that happens when you do it regularly. People become familiar with your brand and who you are. And like John has in his background there, you can't know John without knowing Camfil. And that's because it's a consistent kind of thing that happens. And, engaging, it's really a lot easier to engage online because you have the opportunity to reach people at all hours of the day. If you notice my posting on LinkedIn, and sometimes it's at 12 o'clock at night. So, but there are people up, and, it's about utilizing the resources that you have. And that's what social selling is. You have anything to add to that, John?
Yeah, just that it's sort of like when you go to a trade show or a networking event. Like we do this all the time at NAFA events, right? These networking where we're all, the meetings are great, but afterwards the hangout and cooler talk, that's where everyone gets to really know each other. Thinking of social media as a way to do that sort of thing a little more precise is an interesting way to look at it. It's definitely great to sort of build your brand. And these days, because everyone is under the gun to do more with less time, less resources, and they're spending all their free time on their phone, if not even their free time, they're spending all their time on screens, two of which I just shared that it's on social media. We really need to work hard to capture their attention. Attention is really the economy we're after these days. So why not be where our customers and our prospects are at? People live on their phones. I mean, where would we be without it, right?
Yeah, you think about it, you have after school activities. What are folks doing when their children are at soccer practice, right? They're checking out their phone and answering their messages on LinkedIn.
Actually, sorry, just a silly aside. I think it was in Amsterdam. They actually put screens in the sidewalk because people are doing this all the time and would walk into traffic. So they would actually put the red lights thing on it. Yeah. So people are on their phone a lot. Might as well catch their attention with a catchy headline, right, Lisa? But the other thing, as well as, and we'll get into sort of the how afterwards, is that people buy from who they like at the end of the day. If you get the best product in the world, they don't like you, they're not going to buy from you. So what's interesting about the social media and this, we're going to talk about LinkedIn, it's you as your own brand. Like, not everyone likes Nike, and that's okay. But just thinking about it as your brand rather than your company's is a good way to look at it as well. And then certainly the world's changed. Like, I mean, everywhere we go, people are working from home still today, a good anywhere from 20-30% all the way up to maybe it's 80-20. Like, it's all over the map depending on the industry you're in. The good old boy handshakes and beers afterwards to seal a deal. Like, the world's changed, and there's definitely been an evolution in buyers. So being where the people are at, and speaking their message is certainly an important thing to do, and using the digital domain, it's a great way to sort of access that when otherwise we wouldn't have had that before. Anything to add there, Lisa?
No.
Cool. Oh, silver tsunamis. Here's the other thing. There is, and maybe some of you haven't heard of this term before, but the silver tsunami is the amount it's a wave of gray-haired humans that are retiring in the next 5 or so years. There is 5 people leaving the trades and 2 people coming in. There's a massive gap in labor and so on. Why do we care? Why does that care? Why do we care when it comes to LinkedIn? Because people filling their shoes are more apt to be using social media, technology, AI, these kind of things. So we need to keep that in mind when we're looking at how we can future-proof our business once our customers retire. So there's an opportunity there. But then also it just, you want to keep top of mind, right? Actually, I was just sharing with Lisa and Tony the other day. I got a connection, a message on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago, and this gal looked really familiar, and we've been connected for, turns out, 11 years. I totally forgot where we met. It was, more than a decade ago. Turns out she now works in a different company altogether, actually several companies later, and had a pretty big opportunity for air cleaners, and reached out to me. And the first thing that came to mind was me, because I'm always on LinkedIn, always posting. So I'm top of mind. That's really what you want to be able to use these tools for, is to become top of mind. And it doesn't always have to be about filters. You could use things like triggering events, whether it's a forest fire, and maybe just take air quality off the table. Maybe there's some interesting news in your local area that your prospects or customers care about. It'd be good to sort of comment on those kind of things because it keeps you top of mind. But that leads to some best practices. Hey, Lisa?
Absolutely. On LinkedIn, especially, you want to keep it professional, and professional doesn't have to mean stuffy, but it does it does reflect who you are and how you do business. And so you want to keep it professional, consistent. We talk about, is there too much? Too much, I don't think so. I think people can, swipe to next, but definitely, when you are posting, keep in mind that you want to make it relevant to the people that you're wanting to reach.
Yeah, and we were chatting the other day, and Lisa mentioned Alex Hormozy, and many of you have probably heard about him before. Very successful, a young fella in the US, and he came up with this book recently. And one of the takeaways was that, when you are doing this contact ratio, so to speak, when you break it down, think of Pareto's principle, 80-20. 80% should be about you and your brand. 20% is the business side of things. Because again, people buy into who you are. They really don't care what brand filter it is at the end of the day. I mean, honestly, they really buy into who you are first. So, focusing on that rather than, oh, I'm the best and yada, yada, yada. great strategy. Which is your personal brand. And that could be, you know, I've seen some folks do some military stuff because maybe they were in the Army in the past, you know, football stuff. I mean, people click with what they resonate with, right? So I think talking to that without making LinkedIn Facebook of the business world, because it's not for dating and it's not for, you know, these other things that people use it for. It is definitely a business strategy. So keep that in mind, which it's all common sense kind of stuff. Don't, you know, I personally choose to not engage in political stuff. I would suggest the same, because that way you're always safe. Play Switzerland, move on, talk about non-political related stuff, even though we all have our own opinions.
Yeah, and be genuine. You know, being genuine is refreshing, in my opinion. One of the things that I love about John when I first met him is his ability to be his genuine self. And that makes him very likable. And kind of how we're here today. You know, I think that like he said earlier, people like to buy from people that they like. And being genuine and authentic makes you a lot more likable than trying to be something that you're not.
Yeah, and on that note, it's just easy to remember who you are if you just do what you do. Like, I let my freak filter flag fly and I just do what I normally do, and people like it or they don't, and that's okay. But it's consistent, right? And I think that that's a good point, is lean into whoever you are and the things that the customers like about you. And on that note, you know, keep in mind before you post, like, what is the purpose of this? Is it actually going to bring any value to my customers? Otherwise, like, is it to show off something cool, or is it more like, hey, I think you might want to consider this for your business, or hey, this is a new, let's say there's a new, I don't know, widget technology that does some kind of cool sustainability thing. It has nothing to do with air filters. That could be a value to your audience that you've connected with. So it's a great way to, you know, sort of stay informed as well of what's changing, who's switched jobs, these kind of stuff. And you also get to sort of keep in mind your customer avatar, right? Like your ideal customer, what do they care about? Thinking of those humans before posting and sharing, and that kind of stuff is always a good best practice. Do you have anything else to add on that, Lisa? Ooh, the interactive part. So how can you use this tool in the field? I mean, it's pretty straightforward. You got a computer or you got a phone, cool. But a lot of people don't know that you can actually send in-mail messages that are video. So instead of sitting out there and pounding out a text, you can actually send a video message when you're connected to people. And I think you can unlock that when there's a paid version as well, but people sometimes are less likely to click on somebody they don't know. This one I thought was interesting. I've been all over for LinkedIn for a long time. I didn't realize for the longest time you have your own QR code. So when you go into the little search bar on the very top, far right hand side, it doesn't look like this, but there's a little tiny QR code. If you tap that, you can either scan somebody else, like let's say you're at a trade show or an airplane or whatever, or you can click my code and they can scan you and add you right away. So sometimes if you have some hidden parameters about your profile or these kind of things, or maybe your spelling of your name is easily, like everyone puts an H in John, there's no H in John. It's easier to find you, right?
Yeah, this is like a traveling business card that you don't have to remember. Keep it on your phone, and wherever you go, you know, have somebody scan it and they're immediately connected with you on LinkedIn.
Some other things to think about too is, you know, and again, I wouldn't by any stretch call myself an expert, but I do know that you get more views and clicks and shares and the algorithm likes when you have relative hashtags, but don't get crazy with them and put 100, because then the algorithm thinks you're like spamming, and tagging people. So, I mean, Lisa did a much better job of tagging me, and I was, forgive me, Lisa, I should have tagged you in my post about this LinkedIn webinar we're doing today. I did put it in the comment afterwards. So what that does is now anybody following Lisa sees that she's mentioned a comment, or vice versa. So you now get to expand your reach of your message, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I was reading about hashtags as well. You know, they say that it's better to put them at the end of your commentary to make your post more readable that way. And they say about 5 is a fair number. And you know, tagging people, you know, John and I have a relationship, so it's okay for us to tag each other. You probably don't want to just tag anybody in it, but yeah.
And then the other thing, you could post pictures, you could post all kinds of things. You could post a link to a news article or whatever. Videos these days, actually, what's really interesting is if you look on LinkedIn, there's now for the first time and ever a video tab. So it's sort of like the TikTok or the YouTube Shorts. Like that is now a thing. People are just not doom scrolling, but scrolling through these things because there's a lot of great like 30-second shorts on there, which are quite kind of interesting. And so if you find something there that's cool, you could always send it to a prospect, a colleague, blah, blah, blah. Same as you do on other social media, except now you're building your business.
Oh,
So,
one thing real
sorry, go
quick,
ahead.
sorry to interject. On the tags and the hashtags, at the end of this and the webinar, you'll have this sent to you, and there's some Loom videos that I did to just walk you through that process of doing that on LinkedIn.
So this is people are like, why is there a gym picture? Because it's a group exercise. Try the veal. It's fantastic. So what you should do is bring out your phone, scan this QR code. This is actually an interesting little exercise. What it'll do is once you get in there and go through the prompts, it'll actually give you sort of a rating as to how your LinkedIn profile kind of stands out or ranks, in terms of engagement. So it's a nice individual report card that, by the way, none of us are going to see what it is. It's just a great thing for you to go, where maybe there's an area I could level up or sort of post more things or yada, yada, yada. So take a look at that. I'll let everyone take 5 seconds here and check it out. Maybe save the link for later if you like. And then, Tony mentioned in the chat. So NAFA always uses hashtag air filtration, hashtag air filters, hashtag clean air matters. Remember when people used to do this, like hashtag? It's a weird... Yeah, that gets more, whoever's following those respective hashtags, which you can still do, you actually get notified every time someone does a post with that in it. So just in case you didn't know.
Yeah.
And she stole her own thunder, but this is the continuing education, which is actually, she did a great job. Lisa went through and actually recorded. So we didn't want today to be like, well, here's how you create a LinkedIn profile and here's how you message them. That's for another time. This is more of just conceptually think of LinkedIn. Yes, I understand it's an investment of your time, but there's absolutely ROI, including, you might have noticed that Lisa has a different title today, and we don't have to get into it if you don't want to, but there's a lot of value to staying present, staying visible online, but just maybe before clicking send or share or these kind of things, take it a second look and see if it is adding value. And these are a couple of great links that to videos that Lisa did to sort of walk people through how to set some of these things up.
Yeah, thanks, John.
And Tony's saying the slides will be sent out after the webinar. All right. I think that was pretty much it. Love to take, we wanted to be brief, be brilliant, and be gone. But I'd certainly address any questions, comments, or concerns that we have from the group.
Okay, if you've got any questions, please do put those into the Q&A panel there. I do have a couple questions here that I will hit with you guys here. Some folks were able to submit a couple questions when they registered, so we'll start with those, and hopefully that will spur some additional questions as well. So here's a good one, and this is we'll see what people think of it, what you guys think of this. There's a couple questions. Are there demographics who do not reside on social media platforms? And there's another question that's related that says, do you think social selling leaves out certain customer age groups?
Interesting. Do you want to go first, Lisa?
Yeah, so I think anybody that is in the business world right now is online. Now, how much they are is that depends. If they're part of the silver tsunami, maybe not as much. But if you're doing anything in business, you're going to be online because everybody knows that's how you reach people now, because that's where people are.
You know, I was quite surprised when I first got into this industry a decade ago that how many people that are, you know, just in the operations side. Just meaning the perception prior was, well, it's suits and salespeople, and you only go on LinkedIn to find a job, blah, 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 blah. Some of these other myths that we probably should have covered, but it's, you know, it's interesting to see just how much variety of different people are on LinkedIn, and it's been amazing. So now, you know, the pandemic was a great way to use, or was an opportune time to use things like LinkedIn to connect and add value to customers when you couldn't necessarily do that before without actually getting FaceTime. So, but also, yeah, I think you're right. I think that, you know, those on their way out in the next 3 to 5 years, because they're thinking of greener pastures and golfing, probably don't care about adding you on their LinkedIn. Or do they check it? I know a few of these wonderful people, and that's just not their thing. So I can imagine that would also be the same thing for other industries and other companies, that at a certain level of within a company they may not want to, but also how much road they have left in their career might be a thing to consider. But I'd say everyone else feels like everyone's online.
Well, and if you think about it too, I mean, how many other places do you have access to so many people, you know? And to be able to just type it in your computer on, you know, who you're looking for, what type of product you're looking for, you know, you can really narrow things down on LinkedIn and find your tribe per se. And so that's another way, you know, doing those hashtags and ats. And I go through that in those Loom videos if you're not following what I'm talking about. You know, it's just another way to connect. And the more connections you make, the more opportunity that you have to reach people and to share about what you're doing. And people meet each other through you, and connections happen, and people you know, jobs happen, and you know, a lot of great things can come out of it if you put some time into it.
100%. I mean, I always used to say when people are like, I don't have time, I'm like, you're on your phone anyways. Might as well spend that time that is an investment into your business and your career and your network. Because it may not pay off today, but the ROI long term is absolutely on it. So there's a question. I don't know, Tony, you have your hand up, but there's a question. Is that what you're?
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to comment kind of on what you guys said was
Sure.
great. Is also like I think there are some questions about like, you know, where do I spend time, um, and I guess I wanted to add that you know, whether it's a generational thing, like it's, I mean, in 2009 when, you know, everybody was jumping on LinkedIn, you know, or excuse me, was jumping on Facebook was like, oh, it's the young kids got it on there.
Hmm.
Now
It's the
if
old
you
people.
have an 18-year-old kid or nephew or whatever, grandson or daughter, they're not on Facebook. They're only on Facebook because you you say happy birthday to them. They're not on Facebook, right? Or whatever. So people that are in their 20s are not on, probably are not on Facebook. So you have to think about what platform you're trying to reach folks on,
Mhm.
right? And so, you know, everybody's online, but where are they, right? So think about that. You might have to do a little research, and so if you're doing business to business, you know, you're doing one area. If you're doing business to consumer, you know, maybe you're here.
Exactly.
Does your company need to be on TikTok? I don't know that, right? That depends. Are your customers on TikTok? You know, maybe it depends. But are they thinking about filters on TikTok? No, but
I saw a filter video on
it's
TikTok once,
contextual.
actually.
Did you?
No,
Yeah.
I did actually, and I wish I would have saved it. It was actually kind of funny. But you know, again, that goes back to my point of, you know, thinking of your customer avatar. What does this person look like? What do they do? What matters to them? Where are they? What is their age demographic? You know, and so on. Where are they online? Where do they play? Um, you know, and also one of the questions in the chat is any tips for not coming across like spam? And I love that question because you're right. It's spamming online or bragging how awesome you are is just the same as showing up and throwing up at a meeting. at the end of the day, if we don't genuinely care about adding value to the people that are our audience, whether it's 50 people or 5,000, then it's just this self-serving endeavor, and people can see that a mile away, and they won't follow you, and yada yada yada. So I really think just being authentic and thinking how I can add value and not just be clickbaity, and because we've all watched those YouTube videos and they're asking to smash the like button in 30 seconds without actually adding value. You're like, I'm going to watch something else. So be that person that adds value.
Yeah, there's a question there about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I do have it, and it's something that I'm still learning. But I think it's a great place to also gather decision makers that you're trying to reach, probably more readily, in my opinion. I don't know about you, John.
Well, honestly, I got to be fully honest here, and that is like I've had access to it. I dabbled in it. Am I a master of Navigator? Absolutely not. But it is great to sort of see some trends in the industry and know different contexts at different levels and so on. That is valuable. Absolutely. It's just, but it's data. What do you do with that data? So I think it's just like any tool. If you use it, if you don't use it, you lose it. So is it great? Yeah, but so is the free stuff. I mean, you can do, it's amazing how many people are just sort of sleeping on the basics of, like a great example. So people are swamped during the week. They just don't have any time to post on LinkedIn. Here's a cool little strategy. You could spend, let's say, I don't know, an hour with coffee on a Sunday morning, finding all kinds of cool articles that your customers care about that have nothing to do with your company or air filters. And this leads into the 80-20 thing that Renee just asked about. And you can set a timer. There's a little clock on there. You can pre-post every day of the week, or this used to be a third-party function. And finally, LinkedIn realized that, hey, there's value here. We should make that a function. So that way you can work smarter, not harder, and let it work for you in the background while you're out there visiting clients in the real world. Your social media is still keeping active for you. Think of it like an investment of sorts. It's still doing the work for you in the background. And then, sorry, I just see that Renee had a question here about the 80-20, like how personal do you get? Like what is that line? That's a really interesting question. I don't know. I guess, the only answer I could have is a cliche one, and that is, would you put something, whatever your personal level is that you would be in front of your boss, that's the area I would go to. So like a good example, I saw a VP, there's a really high up head honcho at some big company. He goes jogging and does a 30-second video on LinkedIn. Like, some people are like, that's weird. The screen's bouncing like it's Blair Witch. I don't get it. Other people are like, cool, he's a runner, he's a leader. Like, so it really depends on what matters to you. So things like that, even though they have nothing to do with your business, it's just, again, putting a little snippet of you out there that people get to know who you are behind the suit or dress or filter. I think there's a lot of value in that. But of course, just whether your grandma or your boss was in the room, think of how personal you want to get. So I don't know, that's a long ramble, but that's my take on it.
I'll answer the one about how to get people to answer when you contact them. Ultimately, it's about building relationships. And I think people want to talk about themselves. So ask them a question about themselves. Ask them a question about something that you'd like to know about them. If you're reaching out, you're more likely to have somebody contact you if you've asked them a question, because they'll be inclined to answer it.
I think it also depends on what level of relationship you have with this person, whether you are connected, are you second party, third party, and so on. I think if your first connection, you have a little more flexibility to ask a question. Remember, if you're asking something, you're asking to take something from them, which is information. Why would they want to do that? So instead, if we are kind of a giving mindset, maybe you find something that's super cool that adds value to them, that, down the road you want to have whatever it may be, a lunch meeting, yada, yada, yada. But I think starting with them in mind is a much better play than going like, how do I trick them into giving me a response, right? Like, not saying that that's what you're doing, of course. But, and I'm just trying to be cheeky about it to really make the point. And that is, what matters to this person, and how could I actually, get them engaged in an actual conversation? I mean, that's what it's all about, a give and take on both ends.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, if you know who you're connecting with and you know why you're connecting with them, tell them why. People want to know that you care, right? So, sorry about that.
Yeah, and just, here's a great little flashback. Every one of us on this call, all 80 something of us, have had a recruiter reach out to us, copy and paste, not even spend a millisecond looking at our profile, and waste our time. So let's not do that to other people. Let's actually spend some time and figure out, oh, where do they work? Or, little things like that that drive us nuts. They're in the same boat, right? So we're all just humans at the end of the day. This is a real
John and
cool
Lisa, what
session,
about
but
somebody asked about, how do you not be spammy? So what do you think about somebody who says, hey, we've got some common connections in common here, like, well, let's connect. And then you connect, and then there's some sort of automation that sends you an ask right away without building a relationship. What are your thoughts about that?
I hate that. That is just like, and I spend all my free time when I do watch content. The content I go to is usually not Netflix, it's on YouTube because I like learning stuff. And it drives me batty when I have a clickbaity title. I'm like, ooh, got me. I'm going to watch it. And then it's nothing to do with what they actually said it was going to be. So I'm now catfished. And then 5 seconds in, it's like, smash the like button, subscribe. Like, why? Why would I do that? So those ick feelings that everyone hates, just think of how to not do that. And what are the great YouTubes? And I'm just using YouTube as an example. Don't just go for the ask right away. It's like actually build a relationship and a rapport with these people and actually care about them. People will be able to tell what's actually on your mind. We all know that we're in business. You didn't just meet them at summer camp. So obviously, you're there to do business at some point, but do it the chill way, not the aggressive way.
Yeah, and I think it matters too if you're running your company LinkedIn as opposed to your own personal, because that's going to look a little bit different. When it's
Good
your
point.
company, it's going to be definitely, why people are there. They're there for the company. So that gives you a little more room to be more blatant, I guess. But even so, in that situation, not keeping it spammy can also apply to what you're advertising. So keeping it brief, getting to the points real quick. And then that allows people to decide whether or not they want to reach out to you. So
Yeah, I think different things, different contact points are going to do different things, right? And so you may, if you do, great, but if you may never get an order through LinkedIn messages saying, "Hey, what are your pricing? I want to make an order," right?
Never
It's
happened.
probably not going to happen, right? But if you think about like the top of the funnel, right? If you think about a funnel that, in marketing, there's strangers at the top, and then through nurturing and development and education, they go through the funnel and they drop out the bottom. And dropping out the bottom might be they take your phone call, right? And so there's 15 salespeople calling them. Which one are you calling you? Which one are you going to take the phone call from? Somebody with either the best value proposition, maybe a name you recognize. Hey, John Holmes is on the phone. You're like, that sounds familiar. Who's that? Oh yeah, he's that LinkedIn guy, or like, or I heard him on the webinar, right? And so even just doing this, right? Lisa and John are on here. For them, this is probably a little bit of business development because now you're going to know their name, and right, maybe you do business with them someday. Here we are on NAFA doing education out here, and so when you and I run into each other at Field Expo or AHR, you're like, oh yeah, hey, you're the webinar, you're the podcast guy, right? Thanks for putting all it. I hear that as well. You guys hear that, and so the when your boss asks you, why are you spending so much time LinkedIn? Where are the orders? And you're like, well, it's a long game, right?
Mhm.
It is a long game.
Absolutely. That's a great point, Tony.
Ooh, here's a question. This is how can I add value if I'm only a field technician? You're not only a field technician, you're on the front
Yeah,
lines.
that's exactly what I was
That's
going to
super
cap.
important.
Nobody's an only something.
Uh-uh.
All of our companies need every human to make the thing work. So I think if you're the person in the field technician, if I'm reading this correctly, I mean, without you, nothing gets done or fixed. So it's kind of a big deal. So I think, man, I can only imagine the stuff you go through in a day, the challenges you have to overcome, the debunking, the sleuthing to figure out what the problem of something is, and then fixing it, how cool that is, and what the value of that to the customer is, and how happy they were as a result. That whole life cycle or chain of events, whatever you want to call it, all of those little areas are great little things to show the world of what you're doing. So it's and how your customer is not unique. They're not, yes, they're special, but there's a lot of other people that had the same challenges, the same concerns. So maybe somebody sees a post like that and goes, I had the same issue, and that field tech actually did a really good job. I'm glad I saw that, especially now with the little reels section on the video component of LinkedIn. You don't have to create like a giant blog post. You could just whip out your phone on a rooftop or in an air handling unit and do a video. You certainly don't need Hollywood level studio quality stuff. We all have the best camera gear in our pocket. So just get creative as to what you're going to say, keep the end user or the end audience member in mind, and just go. I mean, at first it will be awkward if you haven't done it before, but then the next time it's a little less awkward, and eventually you'll love it. That's just kind of how the getting outside our comfort zone works.
Yeah, and I want to add to that, Yvonne. You're not only a field technician, this is just where you're at right now. If you hadn't heard, Costco's new CEO started when he was a teenager stocking shelves, and he's the CEO now. So you're where you're at now, but that doesn't mean you're going to stay there. And being on LinkedIn is going to help you get there. So, you know what? You may be the owner of the business, because people will see you and what you're doing, and it's all important. So
Yeah.
Yeah, we sorry, go ahead, Tony.
Oh, sorry. So I was just going to say, and another thing, as the a field technician, you see stuff that your sales manager or your regional manager, who sits in a nice air conditioned
Has no clue.
office, does not. But it's but it's while you're up on a roof, or wherever, right? And so what that, like, I think you mentioned alluded to this, John, but like these are they're great opportunities to like take videos and pictures and show your clientele, like, look at this filter, it's old and or it's damaged, and here's how we properly install it, and we put the gasket on it, and right now it's getting bypassed, and now it's properly installed, and now it's performing better. And we have an IT person that goes out and he does this constantly, and he's showing how he's fishing wire through conduit, and he's up on a scissor lift, and he's doing all this crazy stuff, and like I follow him because it's like great, and you're like, oh, I didn't know he did that, right? And so this is a great way to show, like, what does your company do, um, on a day-to-day basis. It's actually very fascinating. So I would love to see, Yvonne, some of your pictures on the crazy places you have to crawl through.
Hundred
Probably.
percent, and you're not. I don't think you're the only one, Tony. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that, one of the things that I maybe because I think like a 4-year-old, but when I go into a behind the scenes of a manufacturing plant or whatever it may be, I'm fascinated on how this thing works. I have no clue what the stuff that you're doing in the field, and I bet you a lot of people would be interested in knowing those kind of things and how you added value to your customers without it being a pitch, just showing them like, hey, here's what I'm doing. Here's a day in the life. And eventually maybe some other cool employers come and call in too. Like it's just, there's so many benefits to being public and being authentic. I can't even list them all. So
great
Fantastic.
questions, everyone.
yeah, there you go. Zach Burgess, Mike
There you
Rowe
go.
made an entire career. There you go. 100%.
Absolutely. Very good. Maybe we should, yeah, he should have done air filter technician uh before he can't close out that show. Anyway, well, good. Thank you guys so much. That was a fascinating conversation. Great questions. Anything else to add as we are coming in for a landing?
I'll just say reach out to people that you're drawn to and connect with them, and don't be shy. And if they don't answer, that's okay. They may eventually, but if you haven't already, definitely connect with me and check out those Loom videos. They'll be really helpful in showing you how to connect with more folks and how to make your posts reach more people in those videos. So thanks for having me, Tony.
Very good. Thank you, Lisa.
And I would just say, there's 70 some odd people left. So you've made it this far. You've stuck around for 45 minutes. To me, that tells me that, obviously your time is super valuable. You wouldn't waste it here unless there was something in it for you. So I hope you got value out of this conversation. If you want to learn more about strategies or LinkedIn ideas or whatever it may be, feel free to search me on LinkedIn or add me as well. Lisa does a great job. I like to play in the LinkedIn sandbox as well. So always happy to help. Thanks for having me.
Very good. Thanks, John. As after we close out the webinar, there's going to be a survey monkey pop up. We value your opinion on how things went today, and you can comment on anything you'd like to hear in the future. We'd love to hear about future webinar topics. We certainly want to know how Lisa and John did today, so we'll give them a report card later. So thank you guys. Please do take the survey. And if you have any questions, please let us know. Thanks so much. And we'll close it out.
See
Thanks,
y'all
everybody.
on
Take care.
LinkedIn.